This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
It's time for another retro interview with a celebrity that is no longer with us. This time around, it's a chat I had back in June of 2002, and it's with someone who left us just recently. This was a woman who was more familiar to us in the water than she was to us on land. The legendary Hollywood swim star, Esther Williams. Esther managed to parlay her swimming career into various successful businesses long after her Hollywood days were over. We spoke with Esther just as she was about to embark on a new show in Las Vegas. It was a chance to reminisce about her successful past. Here is part of that conversation now. People, of course, know you from the films you did, from your swimming days. I guess a whole generation, and the generation I'm talking about is mine and those that followed, would have discovered you when That's Entertainment came out back in the 70s. As a matter of fact, I worked as a theater usher, so I saw that movie over and over and over again. I loved it.
Oh.
And it was not my introduction to Esther Williams, because I'd seen some of your films, but hearing a little bit about the backstory was rather interesting. Now, you were a swimming phenom as a little kid, basically, and you swam on swim teams. What, in the LA area?
Yes, the Los Angeles Athletic Club would scout the swimming meets, the city playground meets, to find prospective swimmers, and I was certainly that. And I had inaugurated a city playground, Manchester City Playground, which is the southwest of Los Angeles. And my mother was quite a lady. She got things done. She was a take-charge lady, and she saw that the playground had places for people to play baseball, but no swimming pools. So she went down to the Parks and Recreation, and she said, I have a daughter that wants to swim. And they said, how old is she? And she said, 8 years old. And they said, well, so what do we do? She said, you put a swimming pool in that Manchester playground, Manchester Avenue, where I went to school, and she'll donate her time to inaugurating it for you. And they said, what does that mean? She said, she'll swim across, and you give her a little medal, and she will think it's the Olympics. She'll be very happy. And so my mother, who really a very kind of wonderful, ahead of her time lady, had done what lobbyists hadn't been able to do in protests and marchers. She said, you have to treat the women right, and little girls are going to be women someday. So you make a swimming pool in that playground for her, and she'll pay you back by being a champion. And they said, golly, Beulah Williams, you certainly do make a case. And they built a swimming pool because of my mother. And I swam in that pool at 8 years. I was probably 9 by the time I did that swim across the pool. And when I got out of the water and everybody applauded, I said, oh, this is fun. I liked the applause. And I still do.
Well, that's great. Obviously, your mother was a very, very strong-willed woman.
Oh, I just love Beulah Williams because I was her 5th child, and she'd been awfully busy raising my 4 brothers and sisters. But by the time she got to the 5th one, she turned to my older sister Maureen and said, you raised this one. I'm going to go out and find out what's going on in the world. She was very liberated very early. And my sister Maureen taught me to swim. She took me to the beach on the streetcar, and we managed. We didn't have any money, but we sure had a lot of do it. Do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
A lot of people, when they're young, learn how to swim. Some people get into competition. But when did you know you were a cut above the rest, or did you?
Well, I didn't know, but I knew that it was the best I was going to feel all day to get in that pool. And what I did, that I had no idea the benefits that I would reap from that. I swam with the lifeguards in the swimming pool, and they were the best coaches I ever had because they were so supple and those lovely long muscles, strong, that they saved people with. Were the most wonderful teachers in the world, and I'd swim laps with them and match them stroke for stroke. And by the time I got into competitive swimming, because the athletic club, the LA Athletic Club, came and found me, and I had just won the 50 meters in a swimming meet, city playground meet, and they said, that little girl can swim. And they put me on the team.
So by 16, you represented the LA Athletic Club swim team, right?
Right. At 15, actually, because
15.
at 16 I won the 100-meter freestyle. And because of those lifeguards, I learned to swim butterfly breaststroke long before women, or men for that matter, were even doing that. That's where you throw the arms forward, but instead of in the water, you're out of the water, so it's like a double crawl. It makes you awfully strong to swim that stroke. And strong was what I needed to win races.
You made the U.S. Olympic swim team for the 1940 games in Helsinki. Unfortunately, those games were canceled because of World War II.
Well, they figured that with Germany bombing our boats and our planes and everything going over to Europe, the games were scheduled for Helsinki, Finland. And at that time, there was a preoccupation to occupy the Scandinavian countries, and they didn't want our swimmers to risk their lives. And I'm grateful to them for that because our boat might have gone down. It was a very precarious time. But there again, that positive mother, I said, Mom, there's not going to be an Olympics. And she said, well, you can't eat medals. What are you going to do? I said, well, I've had an offer to go become professional and be paid for swimming with Billy Rose's Aquacade. And she said, well, honey, there won't be another Olympics for 8 years. And she was exactly right. Her predicament came true. Her prediction came true. In London in 1948 was the next Olympics. They had to get that war over with. And so I swam in the Billy Rose's Aquacade, and that's where MGM found me.
Now, did you ever felt that you had missed out by being at the Olympics? Or, I mean, when you look back at all the things you've done in your career?
Well, I heard a story once about Harry Truman, and he had a haberdashery shop in Independence, Missouri, and he failed at that. He wasn't a good salesman. He didn't make that go. And somebody once said to Harry, why couldn't you make your haberdashery shop a success? He said, well, it went broke. But he said, as a consolation prize, they made me President of the United States. And I took that story and said, if there can't be an Olympics, I'll become a star and it'll be in the movies. And I was.
So you go to Billy Rose's Aquacade, and from there you're discovered by MGM, is it?
MGM came up to see me, and I couldn't believe they were going to make a swimming musical. Seemed to me that was a one-picture thing that could happen, and then you'd never do it again. But they had seen the grosses of Sonia Henney and her ice skating pictures, and she was an athlete and a champion, and they said, let's just melt the ice and toss a swimmer in there and see what happens. And that was me. I was a swimmer. And I said, God, they're ready for mackerels now to be stars, so we'll see what we can do. And I just did my best. And I was there for 18 years, and I was in the top 10 box office for 7 years, one after another, big movie that made it at the box office. And I figured that was my Harry Truman consolation prize.
Now,
It was better than being president of the United States.
when MGM first came to you, did you have any acting experience, the school plays, anything like that?
Nothing. I never even got an autograph. I said to them, when they told me that they were going to sign me to a contract, I said, well, you people have a lot of courage, because I can't sing, and I can't act, and I can't dance, but I can sure swim, and if you think you can make a movie out of that, I congratulate you. But if you don't want me, just throw me back in the pool. I'll be okay. That was my mother's theory about everything, and I guess I picked that up.
Did you have a role in how some of those stories, some of those movies that you were in were conceived?
Oddly enough, what happened, Peter, is everybody was dry. They weren't wet people, and they didn't understand the swimming. They were like I was. They couldn't believe they were making a musical with a swimmer. And what you have to do when you get into a situation like that is learn fast. You have to pay attention. You have to learn what you don't know, which is how to act, how to. It took me a while to understand that camera keeps rolling no matter what happens, and you better do what they say. And I learned quickly. I was only 17 when I went there, and it's been such a wonderful life. I've enjoyed it so much.
You've mentioned that you have this new project you're working on. Tell us about that.
Along with my mother's positive thinking, I quit making movies because I could see there was not another way to get me into a bathing suit into the water. And the times changed. The musical as we knew it had changed. It had disappeared. When Julie Andrews can be the biggest box office in the history of movies in Sound of Music, and then nobody went to see her in a movie called Darlin' Lily, which was right after the big truth of Sound of Music, I could read the handwriting on the wall. And all along, I knew when I saw Eleanor Powell's feet bleeding because she danced too much, and when Crawford was so broken-hearted because nobody wanted her anymore in pictures, I said, there's an end to this thing. And I think when you have this kind of success, you better hedge your bet. And so I went into business, and I had my swimming pool business in 1958 that had a big success because timing is everything in life, and there was a gas shortage, and nobody could get to their favorite watering hole or lake or river or whatever. So I said, they've got to have a swimming pool in the backyard, and it needs to be affordable and in fast because everybody signs up for a swimming pool and they want it yesterday. So I had tremendous success with a thing called the Esther Williams swimming pool. Then I decided that my name should be on a bathing suit, and that went well, and that's still going on. I'm on a website where people can buy it on the Internet. Business seemed to be the perfect segue to show business because you both of those things deal with the audience, and you give them something that makes sense for you to endorse, like a swimming pool for Esther Williams and a bathing suit for Esther Williams. And it's appropriate. And what they say is, I've always wanted to look like her in the water, so I've got to get a suit that will make me look like her. And so I designed them very carefully after things I'd worn in the pictures, because I had wonderful designers in the MGM. And all of those things seem to have their moment of timing, and they're still going strong.
It sounds like the wisdom of Beulah Williams raised its head again in you, in the fact that so many actors and actresses don't know when to quit or if they should quit, and you seem to see the writing on the wall and make a change before someone else made the change for you.
Yes, and it's very embarrassing to fail and then try to do it. So you quit at the top. And I was top 10 box office at that time, but I knew it couldn't go on forever. When they could have to come up with crazy ideas to get me into the water, I said they're all waiting for a light bulb to go off in their heads, and they weren't swimmers. They didn't understand it. The underwater tank that I used to do my underwater work in had a big window in it, and one day I said to Mervyn LeRoy, who was directing me, he was a very famous director, directing me in $1 Million Mermaid, which was a wonderful number movie because Busby Berkeley, they found him and delivered him to me.
Was that the one you were water skiing in?
No, the water ski was Dangerous When Wet.
Dangerous When Wet, yes. Okay.
But $1 Million Mermaid was the story of Annette Kellerman, who, talk about trendsetters, who was barred from Boston because she had taken a man's swimsuit and sewn black stockings in it because you had to cover the limbs in those days because it was all ruffles and bows at that time, and ladies had shoes on and umbrellas, and they weren't anything resembling a swimsuit. And that was the script of $1 Million Mermaid. And she was an Australian. I met her. She came on the set one day, and I said, "Do you mind me playing your life?" And she said, "Well, the only objection I have is you're not Australian." And I said, "Oh, Annette, dear, you're 90 years old, and we're doing the story of your life, and I'm the only swimmer in the movie, so I'm what you're stuck with." But I loved meeting her because she was a heroine to me.
Now, with all the swimming that you've done in the movies, and it's not easy, take after take after take, some of the things that crossed my mind, especially when I saw Answer Entertainment, is how did you deal with things like, there's chlorine in the pool? Was there any concerns with what it was doing to your skin, your hair? And considering you had to be in makeup for the movies, was this a problem?
Well, it's no problem because it was before doctors have us so scared about melanoma on our skin, because I kept a good tan all year round because body makeup came off in the water. They had water-soluble pancake and things like that I'd dive in the water and I'd see a cloud of body makeup on the surface of the water. I'd say, well, that's all off. Good thing I've got a tan under here. But what happens with swimming, I don't know. I probably discovered this and nobody else knew it except scuba divers know it. The longer you're in the water, the more you're swimming. Like what you can do in staying underwater at 9 o'clock in the morning, you can do twice as well, 3 times as well at 4:30 in the afternoon because you've been in the water all day. And somehow the body, in its miraculous ability to adjust, switches over. I used to check my mirror to see if I grew gills like a fish because I could stay. We worked on a number with Tom and Jerry. Did you happen to see
Yes. Yes, that was great.
It was such fun because that was underwater acting because they weren't there. They were sketched in later, with Hanna and Barbera. And they showed me what the storyboard was, how the mouse and the cat helped me swim the English Channel, which was the script of that one. And I had index cards that told me the story, and I'd study each day that we worked. We worked for about 10 days on that, underwater every day, all day. And it was amazing. I found that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I could stay on longer than I could at night, be underwater longer than I was at 9 o'clock in the morning. So talk about flexible. That's what you better be if you're going to be an athlete in the movies.
That was part of an interview with Esther Williams. Esther died recently in her sleep on June 6, 2013, at the age of 91. You can hear the full interview with Esther on my website at thestufffile.com. Click on to Celebrity Audio Files, and you'll find the interview with Esther and also interviews with others. They are all listed in alphabetical order, and you can play them right off the page.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.